A man sits in the ash of a burning city, pulling a piece of animal skin across his knees. At this exact moment, seems entirely impossible. He dips the pen and writes a phrase that will echo through the next 600 years. They keep returning to the idols. They keep bringing the curse of the torn animals down upon their own heads. The stone demands. The stone condemns. The stone does not empower. And for centuries, humanity has exhausted itself, trying to bridge that impossible gap. We know exactly what that exhaustion feels like. If you have ever stared at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator, making quiet, desperate promises in the dark that tomorrow will be different, you understand the crushing weight of an external law. You set the alarm for an hour earlier. You write down a list of rigid resolutions. On a fresh paper pad, you grip the steering wheel of your car until your knuckles turn white, promising yourself you will not lose your temper when you walk through the front door of your own house today. We are a species obsessed with behavioral modification. We assume that if we just construct the right boundaries, if we track the right habits, if we tape the right motivational quote to the day, bathroom mirror, we can finally force ourselves to become the person we are supposed to be. But you can build a cage of rules around your daily routines, meticulously tracking every calorie, every dollar, every minute of screen time, and straight into a dimly lit upper room in Jerusalem. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord. The cage still does not change the nature of the animal inside it. The law, whether it is carved into granite by the CZ, finger of God, or typed into a spreadsheet on your phone, has a fundamental limitation. It can tell you exactly where you have failed, but it cannot perform the surgery required to fix you. It acts as a flawless, unyielding mirror. When you stand before it, it reflects every fracture, every selfish impulse, every dark corner of your life. But a mirror cannot heal a wound. Behavioral modification is not transformation. It is just exhaustion wearing a mask. You can force your hands to do the right thing for a while, but you cannot force your command center to actually crave it. You cannot command yourself to love a standard that you secretly resent. No matter how many times you repeat the instruction, if you are in a season where you feel like you are constantly failing the exact same test, fighting the same private battle, slipping into the same anger, repeating the same cycles you swore to yourself you would break, you are feeling the exact limitation that shattered the first covenant. You are trying to use an external rule to fix an internal disease. The rules might keep you disciplined for a week, a month, or a year, but eventually, the willpower gives out. The grip fails. When I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Most people assume they know exactly what that phrase means. The stone shatters all over again. Jeremiah saw that cycle. He knew that demanding better performance from a broken people was like asking a corpse to climb a mountain. The Chadashah promised something entirely different. It promised an internal rewiring so profound that obedience would no longer be a painful duty, but a natural, unforced reflex. But a Berit cannot simply be declared. Even a renewed one must be cut. It must be paid for in blood. And 600 years after Jeremiah's ink dried in the rubble, a man sits at a wooden table in a dimly lit room, holding a cup of crushed grapes, ready to make the final incision. A heavy wooden door shuts against the noise of a crowded Jerusalem. 13 men sit on the floor. Dust coats their sandals. Oil lamps flicker, casting long shadows against the plaster walls. A piece of rough, unleavened bread rests on a low table. It is the Passover meal. They are rehearsing the ancient story. They are remembering the lamb's blood painted on the wooden doorposts in Egypt. They are reciting the exact same words their ancestors recited for centuries. But the man at the center of the table suddenly changes the script. He picks up a heavy cup of dark, crushed wine. He holds it in his calloused hands. He does not speak of Moses. Most modern readers look at the words New Covenant and assume God is issuing a software update. He does not point back to the cold stone tablets of Sinai. He speaks the exact words Jeremiah heard in the smoking ruins of the city. "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." Brit Chadasha. The room goes completely silent. These men know exactly what a covenant requires. They know a beret is not a piece of paper signed on a dotted line. They know it must be cut. They know the story of Abraham in the suffocating desert dark. They remember the severed halves of the animals. They remember the blazing torch of God walking the blood path alone. God had sworn a self-maledictory oath. God had taken the penalty of the broken bond entirely onto his own shoulders. For generations, humanity broke the terms. For generations, they shattered the stones. For generations, the curse of the torn flesh hung over their heads. Now, the architect of the promise holds the cup. He will not walk between the torn halves of a goat. He will let his own flesh be torn. The blood in the cup is not a liturgical symbol. It is a legal execution order. The cross is not a Roman accident. It is a covenant fulfillment. When Jesus breathes his last breath on the wood, he is taking the curse of Genesis 15. The assumption is simple. The Israelites failed the first test. They broke the rules. They worshipped other gods. They shattered the agreement. He is absorbing the fatal penalty of the shattered stone tablets. He is taking the absolute, a horrific price of every broken vow, every melted idol, and every failed human effort directly into his own veins. The debt is cleared. The requirement is met. The original arrangement is not tossed into the fire. It is paid in full. But paying the penalty is only half of the Chadasha. Clearing the debt of the past does not change the desires of the future. Forgiving the fracture does not rewire the human command center. The geography of the law still has to move. It still has to migrate from the cold granite into the beating human lev. The blood secures the right to repair the house. But the actual internal surgery requires a completely different kind of invasion. Because exactly 50 days after that cup is emptied, a violent, invisible wind hits the city. The debt of the torn animals is cleared, but a clean ledger does not create a beating heart. A pardoned prisoner with the exact same desires will simply walk out of the cell and build a new prison. If God simply forgave the shattered tablets and left humanity to its own devices, the entire tragic cycle would immediately restart. So God is scraping the original project. He is throwing out the old contract and starting over with a brand new, completely disconnected agreement. The geography of the law still had to migrate. The prophet Ezekiel, a contemporary of Jeremiah, saw this exact surgical procedure from a different angle. He recorded the divine medical promise. "I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit within you." Most people think of the Holy Spirit as a vague, mystical energy field, or a wave of emotional euphoria. The Spirit is not an emotional experience. It is the ink of the Beret Chadasha. When the violent wind of Pentecost tears through that upper room 50 days after the crucifixion, something highly specific is happening to the location of the law, on Mount Sinai. The fire of God descended on a single granite peak, carving letters into dead rock. The people stood terrified in the dirt, warned that if they even touched the base of the jagged mountain, they would die. The law was holy, but it was fundamentally separated from them. But in the second chapter of Acts, the fire descends and fragments. It splinters into individual flames. It rests directly on the hair and skin of the fishermen, the tax collectors, and the weeping failures. The boundary line is completely erased. The fire that carved the stone is now burning inside the living tissue. God is moving into the lev, out with the old, in with the new. And it does look that way when you are standing in the wreckage of the first one. To put the law inside a human being requires a hostile takeover of the command center. It means the architect of the universe actually takes up residence inside the cramped, bruised architecture of the human chest. This is what the modern replacement theory completely fails to grasp. The new covenant is not a lowering of the bar for a weak people. It is the divine occupation of the human will. When the law lives on a stone, you look at it and feel the crushing weight of your own inadequacy. You try to modify your behavior with white-knuckled discipline, but the internal craving remains unchanged. But when the Spirit of God fuses with your lev, the desires themselves begin to radically shift. The things you used to love begin to taste like ash. The selfish impulses that used to feel entirely natural begin to feel foreign, uncomfortable, and jagged. You do not stop lying because a rule taped to a wall threatens you with a severe penalty. You stop lying because the one who is absolute truth is now breathing inside your own lungs, and the lie suffocates him. Obedience transforms from a grim, exhausting duty into a natural reflex of a newly forged identity. The Chadashah takes the broken pieces of the original promise. But if you look closer at the specific Hebrew words the prophet actually pressed into that parchment, at the ancient understanding of what a covenant actually entails, and stitches them together with the actual life of God. But this ancient surgery is not just a theological concept to be studied in a seminary. It is a lifeline for anyone who has ever felt the sheer exhaustion of trying to fix themselves. God walked between the torn animals in the dark and took the curse of a broken promise onto his own shoulders. Moses shattered the heavy tablets in the dust and exposed the fatal weakness of an external rule. Jeremiah sat in the ash of a burning city and wrote down a promise that the wreckage would be repaired. Ezekiel looked past the rubble of an exile and saw a divine surgeon removing hearts of cold stone. A savior lifted a cup of crushed grapes in an upper room and absorbed the absolute penalty of our failure into his veins. The architect of the universe breathed his last breath on Roman wood and paid the ancient debt in full. A violent wind fell on a fragile room of fishermen, and the fire that once carved the granite finally moved into the human chest. One covenant, one repair, one relentless pursuit. But maybe the part that stays with me most is that terrifying night in the desert with Abraham. You start to see something the modern replacement theory completely misses. The new covenant is not a cancellation of the original vow, the suffocating dark, the severed halves of the animals. Abraham is asleep, pinned to the earth, contributing absolutely nothing to the arrangement. He doesn't walk the blood path. He doesn't speak the oath. He just rests in the dirt while God takes both sides of the contract. God knew humanity would break the bond before the blood was even dry on the sand, and he made it anyway, knowing the exact price. It would eventually cost him to repair it. If you are in a season where you are exhausted from trying to fix yourself, if you are waking up at 2 a.m, making quiet promises in the dark that you know you will break by noon, if you are white-knuckling your behavior, trying to force a change from the outside in with rigid rules and daily resolutions, Genesis 15 and Jeremiah 31 are a place to sit. Stop trying to repair the shattered tablets of your own willpower. The Berit Chadashah does not ask you to perform better for a frustrated landlord. It asks you to surrender the command center. It asks you to let the surgeon in. And may the God who walked through the torn flesh alone, who refused to abandon his promise in the ash of your failure, move deeply into the center of your chest and give you the power to desire what you could never force yourself to do. It is the internal surgery required to finally keep it. To find the answer to what Jeremiah was actually seeing in the smoke, you have. If this reached something in you, subscribe, leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from trying to be perfect. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. The smoke rolling off the collapsed cedar beams is still thick enough to sting his eyes. To look at the exact phrase he wrote down, Berit Chadashah, translated in your Bible as New Covenant, but the detail that changes everything hides in the very first word. Because in the ancient Near East, you did not simply make a covenant. You had to walk through blood to get it. We live in an empire of disposability. Something breaks. We replace it. A glass screen shatters on the pavement. We toss the device. A lease expires. The shredder teeth chew the paper. An employee underperforms. We clear the desk and hire a stranger. We are conditioned to view the word new as a clean slate, a blank page. A total factory reset. When we open our English Bibles and read the phrase New Covenant, we drag this disposable culture directly into the text. We assume God operates like a frustrated landlord. The first tenants wrecked the property. They shattered the stone tablets. They ignored the prophets. They built idols out of melted gold and carved wood. They burned the metaphorical house to the ground. So God issues an eviction notice. He gives up on the original project. He sweeps the broken pieces into the trash. He drafts a completely different contract with a completely different set of rules. Old Testament God is rigid law. New Testament, God is flexible grace. Out with the old, in with the new. This is the software update theory of theology. All around him, the walls of Jerusalem lie in shattered heaps of jagged limestone. The temple, the geographic center of his people's universe. Version 0 was full of bugs. It crashed under the weight of human weakness. So, heaven released, version 2, lean. But this reading creates a massive, catastrophic fracture in the story. If the first covenant was inherently flawed, then the architect made a mistake. If God simply abandons his original promise the moment humanity fails, then his word is fragile. His loyalty is conditional. It is subject to our performance. If the new completely erases the old, then you are holding a disconnected book, a story severed at the spine. God is not a frustrated landlord. He does not abandon the foundation when the builders fail. To understand what Jeremiah is actually prophesying in the ashes of Jerusalem, we have to strip away our modern definitions. We have to go back to the original language. The Hebrew phrase is Beret Chadashah. We translate Beret as covenant. But in the modern world, a covenant is just a contract. It is a stack of paper. It is ink signed on a dotted line. A modern contract is a document of mutual suspicion. You sign it because you expect the other person to fail. You outline the penalties. You define the exit clauses. You keep your options open so you can walk away. A biblical beret is not a legal negotiation. The place where heaven and earth were supposed to touch is a hollow, smoldering shell. You can hear the distant, rhythmic weeping of the survivors. It is a binding of life. And in the ancient Near East, you do not sign a beret. You cut it. To see how this works, you have to rewind the timeline from Jeremiah's ash heap all the way back to a terrifying, pitch-black night in the desert with a man named Abraham. And you have to bring a knife. A man named Abram stands in the desert sand. He is exhausted. The sun sinks below the horizon, and a terror, a thick, suffocating darkness falls over his chest. Spread out on the earth before him are the carcasses of a heifer, a female goat, and a ham. They are not whole. Each animal has been sliced directly down the middle. The warm halves pulled apart to create a narrow, terrifying pathway of blood and sand. This is Genesis, chapter 15, and it is the visceral, graphic reality of how a covenant is established in the ancient world. The Hebrew phrase is karat beret. It literally translates to cut a covenant. In the ancient Near East, when two kings or two rival tribes wanted to form an unbreakable alliance, they did not draft a document. They took animals, slaughtered them, cut them in half, laid the pieces opposite each other, and the two leaders walked barefoot through the blood. The symbolism was entirely literal. By walking between the torn flesh, being marched away in bronze chains toward the rivers of Babylon, the king is captured. The land is lost. The participants were swearing a self-maledictory oath. They were speaking a death sentence over themselves. They were saying, "May what has been done to these animals be done to me if I break the terms of this bond." It was an absolute commitment. Abram waits in the suffocating dark. He is the lesser party in this arrangement. He is a nomadic herdsman, and he is making an alliance with the creator of the universe. By every cultural rule of the ancient world, Abram is the one who should be walking through the blood to swear his absolute loyalty. But Abram does not walk. He is immobilized, pinned to the earth by a deep sleep. Instead, a smoking firepot, and a blazing torch. The visible, burning manifestation of God himself float through the dark and pass between the severed pieces of flesh alone. God takes both sides of the oath. God takes the penalty of the broken covenant entirely upon his own shoulders. The Berit is not a mutual agreement between equals. It is a unilateral promise secured by the life of the architect for centuries. The nation of Israel rests on the foundation of this cut covenant. But as the generations pass, the human partners in this bond repeatedly fail. The promises are buried under the rubble. By every measurable metric of the ancient world, this is the end of the story. They break the terms. They abandon the relationship. They bring the curse of the torn animals down upon their own heads, culminating in the ash and rubble of Jeremiah's Jerusalem. The Berit appears to be shattered beyond repair. So when Jeremiah sits in that smoke and speaks of a Berit Chadasha, a new covenant, the people listening assume they are getting a replacement. But the truth of what God is actually doing is hiding in the root of the word Kadasha. We are back in the smoke of Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. The city walls are shattered. The temple is burning. The people are weeping in the ash. And God speaks into the wreckage. I will make a new covenant. The word your English Bible translates as new in this verse is the Hebrew Kadasha. It is a beautiful, heavy word. Its root is the verb kadash, and its definition is going to dismantle everything you thought you knew about how God handles human failure. In modern English, new implies something that never existed before. But in ancient Hebrew, Chadesh does not mean to create out of nothing. It does not mean to sweep the broken pieces into the trash and start over with blank parchment. The gods of Babylon have won. The God of Israel has abandoned his people. The contract is fatally broken. When God creates the universe in Genesis 1, the Hebrew word is bara, to create from absolute nothingness, to speak light into a void where light had never been. If God wanted to replace his people with a brand new, disconnected project, he would have promised a Berit Bara, a covenant out of nothing. But Jeremiah does not write Bara. He writes Chadashah. It means to renew. It means to repair. It means to take something rusted, exhausted, or deeply fractured, and polish it until it gleams like a freshly forged blade. So God gathers the broken pieces. He does not throw them away. When King Saul's reign is faltering in 1 Samuel, the prophet says, "Let us go to Gilgal and Chadish the kingdom. Renew the kingdom. Restore it." When King David is weeping over his own shattered morality in Psalm 51, he prays, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and Chadish a right spirit within me." Renew a right spirit. Rebuild it. That root changes everything about what is happening in the rubble of Jerusalem. God is not issuing a software update. He is not drafting a replacement contract for a failed experiment. The Berit Chadashah is not the abandonment of the original promise. It is the furious, unstoppable restoration of it. But the man in the ash, a prophet named Jeremiah, picks up a reed pen. He is not writing a lament. God is taking the shattered fragments of the relationship, the broken vows, the melted idols, the weeping exiles, and he is promising to reforge them. The covenant is not being replaced. It is being repaired. But this repair requires a radical shift in geography, because the problem was never the terms of the agreement. The problem was the surface it was written on. Moses climbs a mountain of jagged granite. Smoke billows. Fire descends. God carves his character into heavy, cold stone. Moses carries that stone down the mountain. His arms ache from the sheer physical weight of the law. He walks into the camp. He hears the singing. He sees the melted gold shaped into a calf. He throws the tablets. The stone shatters against the earth. Dust fills the air. This is the fundamental crisis of the original arrangement. The terms are beautiful. The standard is perfect. But the medium is fatally flawed. Stone is external. Stone is cold. You can read a rock. You can memorize a rock. You can build a gold-plated wooden box to carry a rock. But a rock cannot make you love the one who carved it. This is what Jeremiah hears from the ash heap. He is not drafting an obituary for a defeated religion. He is writing down a promise about a future that he listens to the voice of God. He writes down the repair plan for a shattered people. I will put my law within them. I will write it on their hearts. The Chadasha is not a change in the standard. It is a change in the real estate. God is moving his headquarters. He is abandoning the stone tablets. He is bypassing the parchment scrolls. He is driving the ink directly into the center of the human chest. In the ancient Hebrew imagination, the heart is not merely a muscle pumping blood. It is not just the seat of fleeting, romantic emotion. The Hebrew word is lev. It is the control room. It is the absolute command center of will, intellect, and driving desire. To write the law on the lev is to completely rewire what a human being actually craves. The first covenant demanded obedience from the outside in. The law stood outside the body. It pointed a finger. It demanded absolute compliance. It said, "Do not steal. Do not kill. Do not bow to carved wood." It drew a perfect, unyielding boundary line in the sand, but it offered zero internal power to obey it. Kings try to enforce the stone. Priests try to teach the stone. Prophets weep over the stone. But the people keep failing. The cycle repeats.